Welcome home, brave heroes and those afflicted with madness alike. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and today I wanted to present to you the Miskatonic Uprising, which is Book 1 of Cthulhu Quest, a HeroQuest expansion by Anthony Hooper. Welcome to the Miskatonic Uprising, an expansion for the HeroQuest game system with 6 new adventures in a place touched by madness and despair. Also in this book is a new way to play the classic barbarian, a new type of spell that wizards, warlocks, and others can buy, new monsters for heroes to defeat, and a whole new class to play. Book 1 of Cthulhu Quest, a series of adventures inspired by the fiction of American writer H.P. Lovecraft. Now this 37-page book is available on Amazon right now, and of course I will put a link in the description below where you can obtain it for yourself. It is followed up by The Force of Flesh, which is Volume 2, newly released, and is much the same, but 7 new adventures and a new way to play the classic dwarf. Here are your USB and ISBN numbers for the first book, as well as a QR code. I wonder what that does. So let's begin. On the first page, we have an explanation of Cthulhu Quest, the Miskatonic Uprising. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. Scientists, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piercing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age, said H.P. Lovecraft. 6 adventures and new ways to play for the HeroQuest game system. Now, this is copyright 2024 Black Liger Trust. Permission granted to copy cards and tiles found within for personal use. We have, as I said, 37 pages, and how many quests? 6, but there are a lot of other contents in here as well, such as resources for our cantrips being minor spells that wizards and their ilk learn in the early years of study at university. They are not powerful, representing the first steps in a magic user's development. Unlike other spells, cantrips are class of spell purchased like equipment, limited to the wizard, magus, elf, warlock, runeblade, and other heroes, restricted to using only wizard equipment. So the arcane crown, conjured dagger, and conjured dart are cantrips. These are pieces of equipment that are conjured into existence by the magic user, and these cantrips can be dispelled by enemy magics. A hero can only own a number of cantrips equal to their mind points. A hero is free to sell any cantrips they own at half the cantrip's original purchase price. We have a few more: Genie's Hand, Mind Over Matter, and Summon Rat, which I just immediately love. Summon Rat is automatically my favorite. It's a pretty cheap cantrip at 125 gold coins, and you get a rat who has an attack of 1, a defense of 1, BP of 1, and MP of 1. We also have a brand new character that we can be, the Abyssal Magus. The Abyssal Magus is a specialist spellcaster, collectively known as Magi. Take a narrow focus on the arcane arts. Similar to elves, their dedicated training in selective magic allows a more flexible approach to martial pursuits. The Abyssal Magus is one such specialist. A graduate of the Miskatonic University, the Abyssal Magus has studied the elements of water and air, as well as the spells of darkness. When on a quest, they can select any 2 spell sets from the 3 they have learned. With an attack of 1, defense of 2, body of 5, and mind of 4, they have a starting weapon of a dagger and can select any 2 spell sets from air, water, and darkness. They can use ranged weapons like a dwarf, but otherwise limited to wizard-only equipment. Ranged weapons like a dwarf. The Wargarian. After a mighty barbarian becomes a champion of the realm by completing 14 quests, they may decide to go on a solo journey in the lands of the Shadow Fog and earn the right to be joined by, or to rather, a tribal totem animal. A sulfuric-smelling fog will sometimes form where dread has had too much influence in the region. Anyone trapped in this mist will discover they are now at a place that mirrors the natural world, but not perfectly. The lands of the Shadow Fog are eerie, a place where dread and shadow are unchecked, and the absence of light creates twisted and distorted visions. I've decided that I can't read today. My mouth has decided it's not going to work. A Wargarian is a barbarian that has joined with Warg, the great wolf totem. From this, the barbarian gains the ability to change into a werewolf at will. While in this Warg form, the barbarian is able to perform 2 special actions, each once per quest. The Warg form is a natural werewolf. Claws grow from their fingers, their head takes on the appearance of a wolf. Fur covers their body. Howling is easier than talking. So while in this form, the Wargarian loses the ability to use most handheld items, the broadsword is the only thing they can hold, but this is of little concern as they can use their claws to attack their foes both adjacent and diagonally. And whenever they attack, they can strike with both claws or one claw and the broadsword. So warg form is the barbarian changes into a werewolf. They can make 2 strength 2 claw attacks. These attacks can occur diagonally. They can change any one claw attack to a broadsword attack. While a werewolf, they add +1 to their movement dice results. This ability can be ended only before the barbarian moves. To return to hand after used, it can be used again. It is important to note that the book calls out the difference between the Wargarian werewolf form and the Dread Werewolf Curse. The warg form does not rob the Wargarian of their mind. The champions who earn this ability still retain their barbarian identities, hopes, and dreams. And I believe that the idea of having a barbarian complete the initial game system campaign of 14 quests and earning the right to become a Wargarian could still go into Mage of the Mirror and become a mindless werewolf thanks to the curses of the dread magic therein. But this would be up to Zargon. That's just my interpretation if I were Zargon. Call Wolf. This is a skill that the barbarian in warg form only can use. It issues a howl that is heard by a nearby red wolf. As long as the barbarian remains in warg form, regardless of the number of heroes on the quest, they are joined by a red wolf animal companion. This wolf leaves as soon as the barbarian cancels warg form. It has movement of 10, 3 attack, 2 defense, 4 BP, and 1 MP. It does not specify whether or not this wolf takes up just 1 or the classic 2 tiles of a regular giant wolf. All of the wolves so far in HeroQuest have been large-sized monsters that take up 2 tiles and can attack every space around them, including diagonal. Savage Assault. Barbarian lunges at an opponent, unleashing inner fury. The barbarian may move up 2 squares and then perform a single attack on an adjacent target at strength 6. If the barbarian rolls any number of black shields, the target automatically suffers 1 mind point damage. I like stuff like that make use of the black shield against enemies. I think those spells are pretty OP. And this is not canceling out your movement, the movement part of your turn, so you could still roll 2 red dice to move and then do a Savage Assault. So we have a prologue that kind of establishes the idea of the Miskatonic University in this fantasy world rather than in a purely Gothic Victorian era. This has nothing to do with London. The Miskatonic University is an American thing, but not in this realm. Miskatonic University today is regarded as one of the leading schools in the known world. It has attracted halfling scholars as well as a rare few goblin folk, not to mention the peoples from the 3 kingdoms. That's humans, elves, and dwarves. Any with a desire to understand the seas find it a natural destination. It is this cosmopolitan nature that could also be its undoing. I have to say, it's an interesting setup. It is an interesting setup. Okay, we're going to be looking at stuff in the book that could be regarded as spoilers for the quests, so just keep that in mind going in, but I'm not going to go too far. I'm probably just going to read some of the prologue stuff, and then we'll look at the first quest, make some determinations, some observations, and then we'll flip through the rest of the book, not looking at quests per se, but some of the additional content before we take a peek at book 2. These quests can be played as standalone. Quests 1 through 6 are designed to be played sequentially as a campaign, though. If you do play these as a campaign, graves. Each has a resting skeleton within, unless noted otherwise. If a hero is adjacent to a grave tile at the start of the game master's turn, flip the tile over and place a skeleton adjacent to the hero. Once a grave is flipped over, no more skeletons will emerge from that grave. Healing potions, otherwise known as the Miskatonic. Each hero should receive 3 Miskatonic healing potions before the first quest. This potion will restore all mind and body points to the hero. These potions are a gift from the Dean and not for sale. They have no gold value. Mercenaries cannot be recruited during the campaign. Any mercenaries recruited previously can still join the heroes on these quests. Maintenance costs for any existing mercenaries need to be paid between quests as per normal. This book comes with the grave tiles, the top and the bottom. It is the size of 2 squares. You're meant to perhaps photocopy, or if you really want to, you can cut this out and affix these 2 sides onto a single 1x2 tile piece. And by the way, unrelated, sort of related, I've been working a lot with matte photo backing board lately. That stuff is awesome to make tiles with. Print out your stuff, cut out your stuff, and glue it to the matte board. You may have other solutions for that sort of thing, but that's what I've been doing, and I find it rewarding. You can go on Amazon and find a pack of like 20 or 50. They're used to put in photo frames and kind of be like the background for your photographs and stuff that you put in the middle of the frame. They're usually 11 by 14 inches, I think, 10 by 14, 11 by 14. They're not easy to cut into. Use a circle blade, rotary cutter deal. Back to the video. Anyway, A number of quests in this campaign require a large number of double-sided grave tiles, so I think that that's fascinating. This does also go on to explain ethereal, mind points being reduced to 0, trapdoors, courtyard and hideout tiles, retains any special rules as described in the quest book Rise of the Dread Moon. So really cool that you can use this stuff. I do wish that early on in the book it would say, hey, this uses resources from X expansion, Y expansion. We have a special mechanic in this expansion called Madness. During this campaign, an ever-increasing sense of foreboding and concern will fill the hearts and minds of the heroes. Each time a hero is wounded by an abomination or a mummy, is affected by any dread spell, uses a dread spell, such as via the Amulet of Aeons, inflicts any wounds on a surrendered monster, or sees a student or bystander attacked by anything in their line of sight, the hero receives 1 madness counter. If a hero ever has more madness counters than mind points, they are required to take a madness test. Madness counters are not lost between quests. The only way for a hero to rid themselves of these counters is by failing a madness test or by consuming holy water. We've got some new monsters here, the Miskatonic Rat, whom I love, and the Dread Marauder. And then we have the classic iconography included with our fan-made expansion. And our very first quest is Prequel, otherwise called a sliced quest called the Shadow Fog's Curse. We have all kinds of quotes from different Lovecraft works in the margins, upside down, sideways, all over the book. I think that's really cool. The design here is really nice. Everything is pretty readable. I would say that the image is perhaps a little bit blurry. It could do with maybe a slightly higher resolution, a slightly higher DPI if a PDF is being used to upload to the pages using KDP. That blurriness is hard to combat, but high DPI can get rid of it. Doesn't matter, everything is still very readable. There's nothing here, in my opinion, that is ambiguous, nothing that I need to really inspect hard to figure out what it is. Everything's pretty clear. The text is really nice here. The pages have a really nice matte look to them, but there is just a hint of shininess, and of course in the image and in the text, there is a gloss that looks really nice contrasted onto the page. This is a repeatable quest. It's designed to be played prior to the heroes undertaking their journey to Miskatonic University and before reading the prologue. It has different starting points. You can actually start in A, B, or C, and you determine this with the roll of a combat die. Once a party has a piece of the amulet, future reruns place the stairs at the missing pieces dice result. So you're actually looking at 3 in 1. That's why there are sliced quests. I like that very much. I actually really like that. We've got 3 different quests on 1 page. Quest makers, take note. This is a great way to save space and to give a lot more life to a single quest in any campaign. Now the quest notes do bleed over onto a second page, which gives the quest creator and Zargon a lot of room for interpretation and a lot of explanation and a lot of clarity when actually running this quest for their heroes. We also get the Amulet of Aeons, and the card is provided here in the quest book on the same sort of section where this first quest has been revealed. More lovely iconography and graphics on the page, and this epilogue to the quest that you will read, which the extra pages really give a lot of extra detail for the quest. A really nice touch there. Now, from quest 3 onwards, whenever a hero discovers gold or gems in a room containing a bookcase, they will also discover one of 3 parchments until all 3 are found. So you've got your different parchments that you will read to the heroes, or otherwise indicate to them that they have found a parchment, one of 3. Really cool feature, very cool mechanic for this campaign. There are also copies of text that are provided in Quest 3 that are issued to each individual type of hero. This is a really interesting mechanic in that it involves every single type of hero and gives each one a unique sort of little flavor of an experience if they are playing this expansion. So if you're an elf, the text that you would get without any sort of context or anything is such grace, intellect, sophistication, aloof but for how long? War changes all things. How will it change you? And Druid, your ally nature warps flesh, blood, and bone whenever I draw near. You will do the same, like all before. How soon will you give in when your friends flee you? So, the beginnings of turning the heroes a bit mad. This also has a section for other heroes, which pretty much makes this nice and future-proof. Now, there are a couple of other things that I want to point out with this particular expansion. Quest 4 is also a sliced quest. It's got 2 different versions of itself, which again, I think is awesome. And then there is actually a condition in Quest 5 that changes the ending. We've got some lovely acknowledgements in the very back. Of course, disclaimer that HeroQuest, Avalon Hill, Hasbro, and all related trademarks and logos are trademarks of Hasbro. Copyright 2021 Hasbro. Graphics copyright Milton Bradley Company and/or Hasbro, not intended as a challenge to the rights of these respective companies in regard to HeroQuest. They have been used in accordance with the permissions granted in the original Quest book and subsequent releases. This, as always, it kind of goes out the window as soon as you're offering a book for sale or to be distributed. The book is literally for sale. It is literally possible to make a profit with this, and if not, you're still paying to have the book printed and distributed. So there's still commercial transaction that unfortunately this sort of thing doesn't provide a good defense against. But it is nice to see it in here, at least it's in here, and also the attribution to HQuest Builder, Perchance, and other AI art programs that were used to help create materials in this expansion. Now, I'm not criticizing the act of making and distributing quest books. I'm not doing that. I have almost all of the Sunday quest books. I love collecting books like this. I've got a bunch of them. And as long as Avalon Hill and Hasbro are okay with it, it's absolutely nobody else's business who wants to create stuff and sell it. I'm just here to say, be careful with your disclaimers. Definitely put in as many as you feel necessary. The more the better. The clearer they are, the better. Definitely better to have them and not need them. The Forest of Flesh is Book 2 of Cthulhu Quest, and it is laid out much in the same way as the first volume. We can expect to see more cantrips, a new class in the Vulcanite Magus, a new class in the form of the Vulcanite Magus. This time, 1 attack, 2 defense, 5 body, 5 mind, can select any 2 spells from Earth, Fire, and Darkness, can use rapiers and hand axes, but otherwise limited to equipment that a wizard can use, and a starting weapon of a dagger. Once per quest, a Vulcanite Magus may, as an action, use the Alchemist table to draw a random potion card. Zebra Crossing? Hold on, once per quest, the caster can nominate 12 adjacent squares in a corridor. Any model starting their movement in these squares doubles their movement for that turn. This effect is lost if any dispel is used on any spell. If this cantrip is dispelled, it is destroyed instead. Zebra Crossing. Zebra Crossing. Okay. There are dwarf professions in this one instead of a sort of Wargarian type of story, but this is still contingent on the dwarf reaching the status of champion by completing 14 quests of the original game system. They are eligible to enroll in a professional school. Every dwarf desires becoming a professional, for within their community it is quite prestigious, but with that prestige there is a significant cost. They can be an armorer, an engineer, or a miner. The profession costs 1,000 gold coins. They can also be a weaponsmith, a delve, or no, wait a minute. The weaponsmith is the 4th profession, and then the miner grants the delve action. The reforge ability requires the dwarf to be a weaponsmith or armorer. This was probably obvious to those of you who know what tells to look for, and it's something that I have mentioned in passing already, but these books do use AI art, so if that is a deal breaker, that is something you should know. But at least the author is open about it. This particular expansion comes with the grave tile, the trapdoor tile, and the open floor tile. And Zalathia's Reach, a tile included in this book. I'm curious about this tile, let's look for it. Ew, on the way I found the Tree of Flesh, which has no move, no attack, 4 defense, 5 body, 4 mind, and has blood thorns. This monster can shoot thorns at foes as if it were armed with a crossbow, a strength 3 ranged attack. That's gross. Kill it. Set it aflame. Ah, there it is, Zalathia's Reach. This tile is a rip in reality between the world of the heroes and Zalathia's mind. When placed, if this tile completely covers a room, that room does not have walls. If it is placed in a way that a room is partly covered, wall sections not adjacent to this tile remain. Any room this tile occupies is considered the one whole room, even if part walls remain. Any adjacent corridor squares to this tile won't have walls, and so become part of the Zalathia's Reach room as well. Any model that ends their movement on or is pushed into a black space is immediately lost. Any equipment they had is lost with them. That's going to take a little bit more brain power to wrap one's head around. Quest 1 in this campaign is not a sliced quest. It has 1 beginning, 1 ending. Now, without ruining too much of Quest 2, this is an example of how the special room with this campaign is placed, right on the center tile. Center room. Now, this is pretty interesting. Catacomb Crawls, the university's tests. The university will require the heroes to go on 2 catacomb crawls, Quest 3 and Quest 6 from the base game. The Dean is either the Knight hero, or for players using that hero, any of one of the 4 original heroes. The Dean will not fight enemies in these crawls and won't be attacked. The Dean carries 2 Miskatonic healing potions whenever a crawl starts. In these crawls, wandering monsters have the Fire Apparitions type. No creature in these crawls can cast dread spells. Dungeon looters do not have the dread spell scrolls. The objectives of these 2 catacomb crawls is already determined. Heroes need to slay a version of the warlord or the boss again. And it kind of powers up the bosses of Quest 3 and 6. Really interesting mechanic here. I would like to see maybe more of that in fan-made expansions, where you repurpose an older expansion or the base game system and you provide details as to how the enemies are powered up in that quest and why the heroes are revisiting. What rules overlay apply in this situation? I really like that it gives life to the quests of the game system. It didn't even have to reuse the map. It just said, hey, go play those quests. The Blade of Sanity makes an appearance, and there are 3 versions: Hope, Wolna, and Aeon, which is the Blade of Insanity. None of them can be used by the wizard, but that's why the wizard gets cantrips. Salathia does not like sliced quests. There are none in this book in the Forest of Flesh. This expansion also comes with the Regiment Soldier, which is a special mercenary only available in certain quests, like Quest 7. They are the king's own warriors, lending their aid against a significant threat. They don't have a higher cost, and the quest will state if the mercenary is available. They cannot be retained for future quests. Really cool. Again, there is a 2-part ending, or an ending in 2 different versions, depending on what the heroes do at the very end of the quest. I really like H.P. Lovecraft's work. I've owned a lot of different compilations of H.P. Lovecraft books over the years, and I've made it a personal goal to read all of them, all 64 of the short stories and 4 novels, with the case of Charles Dexter Ward being my absolute favorite by a large margin, one that I don't think is going to be beat, and then The Hound and The Festival coming in tying in second. And so I can really appreciate some Cthulhu influence over the HeroQuest world. As for feedback on the theme, I would love to be transported to this vague medieval era in which HeroQuest takes place, this adjacent to the old world realm of chaos, kings, ogres, orcs, and goblins. Take me there. These books seem to genuinely try to do that, so I can't wait to play them and see if I can understand the feel that the author was going for. And hopefully I will be transported away from the American Miskatonic and into the HeroQuest Miskatonic. It'll be quite a feat if it can be achieved, because I think it's no small feat. I think it's no easy task. But that, my friends, is the presentation of Cthulhu Quest. I want to thank Anthony Hooper for sending me these 2 books and for allowing me to review them on the channel. I think that the AI art will be a turnoff for some folks, but I want to encourage everybody to give that feedback and maybe try to convince the author, if the AI art is putting you off from buying the book, to try to source some non-AI versions of artwork wherever possible. And maybe, just maybe, we can influence the creator to make new editions of Cthulhu Quest, or perhaps these changes will be present in the 3rd volume. Whatever the case may be, thank you so much for this kind, generous gift, and thank you all for watching as always. I will see you all in the next quest. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and onward.